Okay, Mr. Willis, you had a question about how to model these. So do this. Review that video that I showed in class the other day, SolidWorks World Model Mania 2013. If you look that up, look at that video, you're going to model this in a very similar way. So one thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about this model, and I think we're probably looking at something like maybe from the right view. So the front would be over here, and the right would probably go down the middle. You think about this model in symmetry. So maybe the first things you're going to do is just like in that video from Model Mania is you're going to do these two circles, two concentric circles. Same thing over here. They might be the same size, which is great, so you could just copy one to the other. You got to think about where the origin location is going to be, which is probably going to be like in the middle of this axis or that axis, whatever is convenient for you. You don't have to worry about these internal insets in here too. They might be for bearings or something like that. You could add that later. Or we start simple and then take away material later if you need to. But one thing to consider here is maybe the plane that would go right down the middle of this thing. So that would be the front plane. So we're looking to the front of the bike and this, no, let's see. No, that would be the right plane. So the right plane would go right down the middle here. So the front of the bike would be up here maybe, or back here. And if that's the front, then this would be the back. So that would be the right plane. So I think that's the way we're looking at. So these would be like maybe, in the same axis orientation as the wheels would be. So two circles here, two circles here, and then do that offset. So remember how we did that? I did an offset by, it looks like what maybe in here, maybe half an inch or 3/4 of an inch. Start with the offset of 3/4 of an inch and then extrude it out by half an inch. And then you have these wheels, so it's kind of offset from that plane. Then once you do that, then you can go ahead and sketch in something like this. So now you're going to sketch in this geometry off that very same sketch that you have here for the wheels, just like Mark Schneider did. So you're going to start over here. You're going to have a little bit of an arc, and it's going to go into a line, another arc up here, and then a straight line over here, arc here, and then that looks like that arc is going to have a tangent relationship here, and then this arc over here is going to have a tangent relationship over here. Actually, I think this is probably a straight line over here, so that line would have a tangent relationship here and a tangent relationship here. So very similar to the stuff we did in class. In fact, the push rod was made in a similar way. So then you do the same thing down here. So you got these two circles. This arc over here is kind of connected to that circle. So down here, it's either an arc or a line. I can't tell, but whatever. It transitions into an arc here. It may be a broader arc over here into a sharper arc over here. And eventually, you have a tangent relationship down here with that circle and tangent relationship with that circle here too. So you can set up all this sketch geometry first initially before you even do these extrudes. And then you do the extrude with the contour select tool, just like Mark showed you. You do this one first, do this one second, and put this one right in the middle. So you do that offset, you put it right in the middle of this. So now you have, as a solid, you have these two, you have this boss over here, and you have this kind of like a webbing between the two bosses. And you got your model probably, a third of the way done. And, the other third would be if you mirrored it. But before you mirror it, then you want to put in this stuff in the middle. So again, you can keep adding to that sketch geometry. You can go back to that original sketch and maybe add something like this curve in here with an offset from that inside circle. Add that curve in here, which transitions into a little bit of a bump. And it goes into this webbing that goes between these two items. And then kind of goes over here, and you might want to add thickness to it, or you could just do a single line and do a thin extrude. But anyways, it follows that contour down here and comes over here, make the thickness of this round over here the same as that. And this would be a thin extrude, but this one you're probably going to have to go all the way around and connect back up to that line. So it might be better just to keep that thickness the same all the way around. So it's going to be the thickness is going to be between the offset between this and inside circle, and then that outside surface over here, and then you're going to have a similar offset over here throughout this this webbing in the middle, and then same thing over here. So now you pretty much have it done except for this little irregularity. So this kind of looks like it goes off at an angle, and you can probably do this as like a sweep feature. So you might want to look at the videos for week 4. There's a video about a sweep feature. You want to define a path which would be, for the most part, just straight until it gets down here, and then it kind of curves down and blends in everything else. So the way you would do a sweep in this thing is you'd put in that line, and maybe you could start on like maybe the top plane, So if you can organize this on the top plane, but if you put your origin in the middle of this circle, the top plane, you're going to have to offset that. So maybe call that top plane 1. And just sketch that line out, add a little bit of an angle, put an angle dimension on it. And you can make a reference with some lines that you would have in here, some center lines that we would put in. And then you sketch out that line and put that little bend in that line if you want to do that, or maybe save that for later. If you do that little bend in the line, it might be a 3D sketch if you want to do something like that. And you can kind of play around with how a 3D sketch works. But this line would be on like that top plane 1. And then you'd have another plane that would be kind of like in an angle down here. And you would put a line in that angle, or you could do a 3D sketch and just sketch that line down at that point. You're going to have to play around with that a little bit. Then you do your sweep. So you do your profile at the end of that line. You take the line itself, to point at the end of the line with the control key depressed, and go up to features and insert features. Put a plane at the end of that, put your profile on that, maybe, quarter of an inch in width, maybe a little bit less than that, and just have it go down that path. And now you have your sweep. And I think that's probably it. And don't forget your little bump in this side too as you put in the profile for that inner webbing. So once you get half of this done, and I kind of jumped the gun here actually, this is the very last feature you're going to put in. And before you do that, you want to make sure that everything you've modeled on one side, as we've been talking about, after you put in the fillets and everything else in this, and your cuts in here too for the bearings, and then you mirrored it over, and then you put in your sweep. So sorry about that step. So just a review. One sketch would include these 2 concentric circles over here. They might be the same size. Then go ahead and sketch out these lines and arcs over here. And we'll connect tangentially on the top and on the bottom, having that form. Then go ahead and sketch out, offset geometry in a way here, where you'd have the webbing in the middle, kind of goes into a bump, goes around the inside of the circle. So you're going to have an arc that's going to be offset from that inside circle. It comes back around, defines the bottom of that extrude, comes around here, goes around that circle over here too. Same thickness on both sides. Then do your extrude. Perhaps from the center up over here. And that's going to be 2 separate features, 3 separate features so far that I described. And once you get one side done, then you mirror it to the other side. Put the line up here on one plane, the top plane 1. And then sketch out that line and maybe 3D sketch extension of that line down here. That kind of connects down here, but it's not important if you didn't have that in there. And do your sweep along that line, and you should have that done. So that's that guy. So where's the other guy? Let's go ahead and go to the next picture. This might be a little bit different, but you would start the same way. Start in center in here in the right, down the right plane. Sketch out these 2 concentric circles in a way, and it looks like they're coplanar with each other. So that works out really well, and get the width of that. And then you got these 2, these 2 bosses out here. So this is going to be a little bit tricky in here, but not impossible. You want to do a loft on this one. So in a loft, you can define, like starting over here, you would get a plane, and you got to think about where your origin's going to be. So probably back here, you have the bulk of the material back here. So the origin would be right in the middle, right in the center of that circle over here. And just start offsetting planes. Offset a plane over here, another inch, another plane over here, another plane over here, and your final plane over here. And begin to sketch out rectangles on those planes. So you have a beginning rectangle here, and then rectangle over here. Put some fillet edges on that, on the top and bottom of that. And then every plane you go after that, you kind of manipulate that second rectangle from the first one, so that the rectangle kind of moves in this way and a little bit on that plane over here. Then it begins to move back out in this direction on this plane over here, and the plane over here it's moving out even more, and the plane over here is even moving out even more. And then you can connect those with a guide curve, so you can get that curve in here so it's nice and smooth. But again, look at the loft videos on that, and I think that'll help. So when you're done with that, what you have in here is going to be these 2 circle bosses with a hole in the middle, and you're going to have this loft feature in here. Then you can just sketch out something in here that would take care of that little divot, but take care of that later. With lofts, always start something simple. Get a 3 or 4 planes in here and get it to loft between those rectangles. And then after that, you might consider on those rectangles making a little cut in the sketch to take in consideration of this. But do the loft first, make sure you get that loft to work, and then do that. So now you have all those items in here. Again, we're still thinking symmetry in here. Our plane's right down the middle here. Now you can put in this thing. So you're going to have to create a surface, like maybe an offset the right plane a little bit, so you can actually put that in here, put that right plane, like maybe in the center of that boss, and then sketch on that center plane in here, and then extrude out in that direction with that form. And it looks like, again, it's tangent down here, tangent over here. So you're going to have to include all that, and put your hole in that. That hole is going to be concentric with the edge of that. And just do an extrusion on it. And just like before, you're going to do a webbing in between. So again, on the front plane, or yeah, it would be the right plane, you're going to sketch out the webbing in here with a certain thickness. So you're going to go over the top, go around the edge, and do the bottom, following the same contour so it's consistent thickness. Then you're going to have to extrude that. And then over here with these cuts over here, you could actually make that, that webbing in the middle maybe go out over here, and then cut this out later, like off the top plane, sketching that geometry and cut it out. Or you can go on the top plane and maybe add this to that if you want to do that. One way or the other, I think it would work. And don't forget this bump in here too when you make that geometry. So once you got one side done, again, mirror to the other side, and you should be done. So get started on that. Look at the videos in regard to doing the lofts for this one, and I think that'll work out okay. So this is probably the more complicated one, in which you can't figure it out over the weekend. You can bring in class on Monday and we'll work on that. Now for this one too, it's pretty much the geometry we've done in the class, except for you're going to have to look at video on the sweep. Again, the sweep feature is nothing more than defining a path, taking a profile, and making that profile go down the path. So good luck with that. Let me know how you do, and we'll see you on Monday.